Hello, and welcome to Social Work Speaks, a podcast dedicated to helping future social workers explore behavioral health careers through interviews with Dayton area professionals. This podcast is made possible by a generous grant provided to Sinclair Community College's Social Work Department by Behavioral Health Career Exploration. I'm your host, Caleb Cromer, and today I'm talking to Ree Molnar, so stay tuned for my interview with them in just a moment. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you already know, today we're here with Ree. Hi, Ree. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Caleb.
Good. Well, before we get into the main topics and everything like that, and the questions and everything, I wanted to fully introduce you as our guest. So Ree is actually the newest full-time faculty member in Sinclair's social work program. Ree entered the field of social work through community organizing and then discovered the magic of healing while co-facilitating expressive arts therapy groups for kids in 2012. Ree is the co-founder of Dayton Anti-Racist Network, co-founder of Dayton Community Bail Fund, board member of Ohio Families Unit Against Police Brutality, and member of NASWO's Task Force to End Criminalization of Social Work. Ree continues to engage activism while also running their own clinical practice, Rainbow Connection Mental Health Care, which serves LGBTQAI+ folks and their allies. Ree is the recipient of the NASW Ohio Region 7 Emerging Leader Award for 2020. Ree also taught workshops at conferences such as Safety Fest, Oakland, California, and the Allied Media Conference, Detroit, Michigan, and for the public on a variety of topics ranging from transformative justice, understanding gender, expansiveness, dance, community-based self-defense / bystander interventions, and more. So as you all can see, Ree has done and continues to do a lot for our community. So on this episode, we will be covering various topics relating to behavioral health and ways you can get involved. With the help of Ree, we will be getting a better understanding of what it is truly like in the field and how to become a part of it. So this is going to be a very important listen for those of you who are interested. So Ree, this is amazing. I've never spoken to someone with so many accolades before. So with all of this social work that you're doing, I have to ask the question, is this your first podcast that you've been on?
To my knowledge, yeah.
Really? Okay, wow, that's awesome. So how do you feel about being on a podcast? Is this a cool new experience?
Definitely, yeah. And it's exciting to be engaging with the Sinclair students in this way. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here and to work with you.
So nice. Okay, so I mean, you do a lot of social work. This is pretty much the same thing, just on a different type of level. You know, this is something that'll be there for generations to be able to look at and learn from. Yeah. So you're basically solidifying yourself more in history, especially here at Sinclair. So we have a lot of questions lined up for you just so that we all can get a better understanding of the behavioral health field and some of the things that you do. I'll be learning a lot as well because I don't know too much about this, so I'm super interested. So I know we just listed a lot of the things that you've done, things that you plan to continue doing, but I was hoping that maybe you could go into detail about one of those things and tell me how that relates to behavioral health specifically.
So behavioral health as a term is seeking to merge mental health care with care for substance use disorder, which substance use disorder is a mental health condition. Oftentimes, in the public mentality of it, they're separate, as well as funding streams separate funding for one versus the other. Okay. But we know that it's all related.
Yeah.
And that often people who live with substance use disorders, that the substance use disorder is more of a symptom of an underlying issue, very often trauma.
Okay.
And so the bridging of those two worlds is where the term behavioral health comes into play. It's not used everywhere, but it is used, especially in the state of Ohio. And it is a term that is more of a political term that is associated more with funding sources.
Oh, okay. I understand. That makes a lot of sense. So with behavioral health being so in-depth in that way, How important do you believe it to be? Do you think behavioral health is something all of us should have on our minds at all times, or what?
As a mental health care provider,
Hmm.
absolutely.
For sure. Okay.
This impacts so many different aspects of our lives, and so many people have been impacted by mental health. I would go as far to say as there isn't one among us who hasn't been impacted in some way
Right.
by mental health.
For sure.
And so it's important for us to be aware of it. It's important for us to know what tools we need to be able to overcome some of the challenges related to it.
Yeah.
And, it's also just integral into our understanding as being humans on the planet, I
That's
think.
understandable. Okay. So I'm actually curious about something. So when you mention, working with people in relation to behavioral health and everything like that, what age group are you working with? Is it a wide range of everyone, or is it like older or younger?
Yes. Well, I actually got my gerontological certification from Wright State when I was in their Masters of Social Work program.
Hmm.
It was a joint program between Miami University and Wright State at that
Oh,
time.
nice.
But now they've since separated. Um, but so I got my gerontological certification because I had so much experience previously working with children
Hmm.
that I just wanted to have more of an understanding to be able to work with a range of ages.
Okay.
So in my private practice, people see my picture first.
Right.
And although I'm 40, I look young, right? And
Yeah.
so, like most of the clients that are drawn to me are 30s and younger.
Oh, okay.
I don't often attract folks that are older, or although I would love to work with folks that are older than me,
Yeah.
and elders in our community. It's just the way that people organize ourselves. We
Right.
often are drawn to people that we have an affinity for.
Yeah.
People that remind us of ourselves, that we look at them and we say, I think they're going to understand me.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Like you can relate more to somebody like that. Okay.
Yes. But I
All right.
also work with children and continue to work with children, and, really enjoy that,
Good.
as well as mostly, people, you know, younger than 50, I would say, is my
Mhm.
range of folks that I work with currently,
Okay.
although I'm open to working with all ages.
All right. That's cool. So, like, for the older people, 50 and above, do they just prefer somebody who's older doing the same thing you're doing?
I'm making that assumption,
Yeah.
just based on what I know about our biases towards
Right.
affinity.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. I like that. I like that train of thought. Okay. Well, currently, I believe that there are a lot of people considering joining the social work field, who are wondering about like job prospects and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What could you tell those people about the field itself?
It's very varied. There are a lot of different options, and especially now, as clinical social workers, as licensed professional counselors, there you have a lot of options.
Right.
So I hope that also, in with this effort towards recruiting more behavioral health care providers, that agencies that employ social workers
Mhm.
and clinical professional counselors are also looking at what their strategies are for retention.
Okay.
Because certain agencies that I know that are hiring for one position, but it's well compensated with great benefits
Okay.
and a pension,
Mm.
they have 75 applicants for one position,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So there's not a limit of people who are interested and invested in this work, or have been personally impacted and are considering this for a career path. I think
Right.
there's a tremendous amount of people that would consider that for ourselves. I think the challenge is on the other end is, will we be received and cared for once we enter the field?
Right.
And I think that we're in this really powerful position now where we can really advocate for quality of life
Right.
improvements in the social work and counseling fields.
Okay. That makes sense because you've been in this industry, this line of work for a long time now. You have a lot of experience in it. And I assume that you've seen it change over the years and the decades. So, how has the social work and behavioral health and all those things changed as we as people have become more aware of it? And that seems to be the case with a lot of things moving forward in the future. We're becoming more aware of those specific types of health. How has things changed over time?
Well, I don't want to oversell my experience. I actually graduated from the master's program in 2020.
Okay.
So I was a non-traditional student. And so I've been a licensed social worker, clinical social worker for going on 5 years.
That's awesome.
So I definitely don't have that range of experience over the decades. But I do think that things are shifting toward the better for workers.
Okay.
And I think that's because people notice our value.
Of course, yeah. It's so important now. And I think that the reason people are noticing is because more people are talking about it.
Yes.
Like right now, we're bringing more awareness to it, which is one of the most important things I think that we can do to put it on the radar for people, because that's how new things spread. One person knows, they pass it on and so forth. So that type of work that you're doing, especially spreading it, coming onto the podcast to inspire others, yeah, it's definitely moving in a better direction because we can reach more people, which is absolutely fantastic. So shout out to you for that. That is amazing.
Thank you so much, Caleb.
Of course, yeah. So you have some support for the LGBTQAI plus folks, and I was curious as to how their experiences within that field. Are they more impacted as far as behavioral health or less impacted? What would you say?
So when we look at what is called the social determinants of health, there are populations that are more vulnerable or at risk for mental health conditions and substance use disorder.
Okay.
And that tends to intersect with their experience of marginalization in society.
Right.
So when we think about intersection of oppression, trans folks, folks of color, folks living in poverty, people at the intersection of those experiences often have social determinants of health that have lower outcomes than folks that are racially privileged, class privileged, and straight cisgender have a normative appearance in the world.
Right. Okay. So do you just work with a variety of people, or are you working with a specific type of group? Or are there more of a certain race or anything, or is it just a wide spectrum?
I'm really happy to say that I do have a wide variety of folks that I'm currently
Awesome.
working with,
Okay.
which does give me some information as a provider who has invested, this is where I have decades of experience, over 20 years in learning about anti-oppressive structures, power dynamics, and seeking to confront the ways that I embody them,
Oh, okay.
as well as how they are embodied in the world.
Right.
And that's where I feel rewarded in the understanding of being a safe person to a range of experiences in the world that are different from my own because of that investment. That
Okay.
is lifelong. I'm not saying that I'm done
Yeah,
because
for
it's
sure.
been 20 years. I'm saying I need to keep going and keep growing. And being in a position like this at Sinclair helps reinforce that for me too, and give me
Yeah.
more opportunities to keep growing and to also encourage others to grow in their development and understanding of oppression in the world.
That is wonderful. Your heart is so pure. That's amazing. So with your personality being so nice and you being a very calm, sweet person to talk to, do you have any trouble getting people to trust you in this field, or do they just go in with an open mind, letting you in?
It really depends.
Depends.
Yeah, it really depends on, where the person is entering.
Okay.
But often, now that I'm in private practice, people are coming because they want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was working in community mental health and agencies that worked with folks who were experiencing housing insecurity, oftentimes there was more of a reluctance. And the question of, can I trust this person with vulnerable information, is a really important question
Exactly.
in those settings. because we don't enter knowing that.
Yeah.
And it's important to be transparent and open about what the limitations of especially confidentiality are,
Right.
and what is your personal relationship to that, to share that with your clients, because them having the information allows them to have what we call in social work informed consent
Okay.
to engage with you. So they have all the information
Mm-hmm.
that they need, and they are aware of all of the risks of
Right.
sharing information before they get to the point where they are asked to.
That's very, very structured. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of makes it easier for the person because the whole thing, the whole point is to give them that peace of mind, not adding any more stress when it comes to meeting with you and stuff like that. So it sounds like you have a wonderful way of kind of handling that and deterring the negative thoughts because you really are there to help. And
Yes.
That's what you're trying to express to them, I assume.
Yes, and there are people that are really pushing back on some of the limitations that we have to confidentiality in really integrated ways. So there's some organization from a group advocating for families in New York that has put out the slogan mandated support over mandated reporting.
Well, that's interesting.
So many states have laws, including the state of Ohio, around mandated reporting,
Okay.
where if someone were to disclose to me in my professional setting as a social worker that there was child abuse, there was abuse of an animal, elder abuse, abuse of a person with disability, a developmental disability, or they were had a cognitive disability, as a mandated reporter, I would have to report that to authorities.
Okay. Okay.
And so what, advocacy is taking shape around this is saying that that's not always the most helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's very harmful to the family to have, a state agency coming in and making decisions about their life for them,
Right. Right.
which oftentimes can lead to separation, which is a trauma in and of itself, especially for children.
Oh, yeah.
But absolutely their parents. And so the advocacy around mandated support is saying, can we reimagine the way that we approach this, where we really are approaching to support, and that's supported by the laws
Yeah.
and legislation. And so I think that advocacy is really beautiful, and it also speaks to how we are evolving
Right.
as a profession, to center the voices of people who are most impacted
Yeah.
by these laws and legislation that then mandate these very limited interactions that we're able to have.
That makes sense. All right, I understand. And it sounds like this whole behavioral health and this field as a whole is a little bit more deeper than I originally thought. So, can somebody, just the average person, get involved in trying to help others in behavioral health, or do you need a degree or some sort of certificate to be able to help the right way?
So that's another avenue that is getting a lot of advocacy. How do we make licensure more accessible?
Yeah.
So the licensure tests were submitted to a bias testing and were confirmed to be had a racist bias, had a xenophobic bias, had a class bias, and so are really just like the SATs have been demonstrated to have a bias towards straight, white, middle class, affluent folks.
Yeah.
Right? So in confronting that, what could the path to licensure look like if equity were applied? And so that is something that is shaping up. Even NASW National has paid for an advocate through our Ohio chapter
Wow, that's
to
awesome.
be able to develop that,
Yeah.
develop an alternate path to licensure that takes equity into consideration around, especially education equity in the state of Ohio. We have to really be honest about that.
For sure.
It needs help, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Everything needs a little bit of help.
Right. But the path to licensure currently is that you need a bachelor's degree and then you have to test for your license as a licensed social worker.
Oh, I didn't know
Now,
that.
for someone with my credentials, which I'm a licensed independent social worker with a supervision designation, the path that I took, I got my bachelor's degree in Spanish.
Oh, nice.
And then I completed my master's program, and then I sat for my licensure. And so that started me on the path to get my independent license, in which I had to complete 150 individual supervision hours. So that's where I sit, just like I'm sitting with you,
Yeah.
and I talk about what's going on with all of my clients with a supervisor.
Oh, okay.
150 hours of that, and then 3,000 work hours.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And then I could sit for another exam.
Wow.
And that's how I got my I. And all of these things cost money,
Oh.
hundreds of dollars.
Oh, okay.
And
Investment.
then you do a 9-hour training to get your supervision designation. And the supervision designation allows me then to supervise dependently licensed social workers, so people who have their bachelor's degree and their license, or their master's degree and their license, and are working towards independent licensure. I wouldn't necessarily often supervise someone with their bachelor's degree and license because they also have to complete their master's program before we start that. So I misspoke a little bit there, but
That's okay.
yeah,
Dang.
master's degree plus license.
Yeah.
After they've completed that test, then I can supervise them as an LISW-S.
Oh, okay.
It's so complicated.
Yeah, that's a lot of steps. I didn't think it was going to be like that.
Yeah.
So you've been trained to perfection pretty much. I mean, that's a lot of hours.
Well, it is, but then there's this question around equity, right? Because there are such wonderful people in the community that are doing the work
Yeah, of course.
and are impacted, or, people that have been impacted by oppression in some way, that also, are impacted by mental health in some way, that are out here helping the community. And their work is just as valid as somebody who's jumped through all the hoops that I have.
Right.
I think what jumping through all these hoops has given me is an opportunity to hone my skill. So, to be able to access, I've completed an eye movement desensitization and reprocessing called EMDR training.
Okay.
So that allows me to work towards being an expert in trauma therapy, as EMDR is one of the most prominent treatments for trauma. As well as I've completed other more specialized intervention trainings that I wouldn't have had access to had I not jumped through all these hoops.
Yeah, of course. There's just different opportunities and doors you opened up with
Yes.
your experience. Okay. So we know that you are a professor here and you enjoy working with students and everything like that. Can you kind of bring up a meaningful interaction you had with a student and kind of tell me what made it meaningful?
Yes. So just last week before midterm, we had our diversity, equity, and inclusion week.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is really embedded into the social work program here at Sinclair, which is wonderful. But we do have a dedicated week where we're talking about an intro. And I got to bring in a game that a friend of mine created that I've been able to help with the editing process,
Okay.
called Trans 101. And it invites us in a creative way to understand our gender and the construct of gender more broadly, in a very creative and interactive way.
Right.
And so from that, the reflections that I got from students about, wow, I had never considered this. I didn't have the words to put to what I had experienced for myself until that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it brought tears to my eyes, really.
That's awesome.
And that's what Sinclair isn't just about, reaching graduation. It's about supporting people and becoming their whole self.
That's true. Yeah. I
Right?
love that. Yeah. That's awesome. I feel the same way. Oh my gosh. Because I'm supposed to graduate next year. And it's not just about graduation. It's about everything that you go through up until graduation. I've met some amazing people and people like you who impact students. They'll never forget that. They'll go through their whole life and always remember that moment. So the impact that you're making, I know it feels really good for you, obviously, but for the people that you impact, it literally changes their life. So the work that you're doing is amazing. And I want you to know as well that the impact that you're doing is so great that you're probably inspiring people to do all types of things. And they'll let you know too. When they get, they become an expert or a professional in whatever they decide to do, they'll remember you and they'll shout you out too. Because people like you, that's how stars are born. That's how people really get into things that they really enjoy doing. Sometimes they just need that push or they need something like the game that you made or whatever the case may be to get them over that edge. And it sounds like you're really good at doing that for the
Oh,
students.
I appreciate you saying that,
Yeah,
Caleb.
of
I
course.
hope so. I aspire to that.
It's so easy to tell because you exude that type of thing. You're giving the same thing to me right now. So when you tell the story, it's nothing but even more inspiration for a person who may not have, been a part of the class or whatever the case may be. But just hearing about that can have an impact on somebody. And that's just how, impact, motivation, and inspiration works, which makes it really easy to get people involved, which is awesome. So you've had great experiences with those students. Do you have any advice for incoming students? Do you think that they should be taking the same path that you did or kind of changing it up a little bit? What do you think?
Yeah, I guess the advice that I have is to honor your experiences as strengths.
Okay. Honor them as strengths.
Yes. There is so much that, especially, as folks who have experienced marginalization, so fellow queer and trans folks, folks of color, folks who have experienced poverty, there is so much that experience has taught just through lived experience.
Understandable.
And those are all strengths that are brought to this field.
Right.
And so to honor those strengths as strengths, even when there may be circumstances where they're not valued in the same way,
Yeah.
your clients will value them.
Okay. I like
Yeah.
that because they support you
Yes.
as much as you support them. That is amazing. So pretty much you've given the baseline of the path that you could take, but it seems as though, there is room for a little bit of branch off if people have other aspirations or something like that. But if they do want to get involved in that behavioral health field, pretty much they just need to go through school, try to get that experience, and then go from there pretty much is what you're saying?
Yes. And fortunately, because it's like the silver lining of the deficit of behavioral health care workers
Right.
that are currently in the field. One of the silver lining of that is there are a lot more opportunities for folks with an associate's degree.
Oh, okay.
So, and you can get a license with an associate's degree. It's an assistant social worker license,
Okay.
and it doesn't necessarily allow you to do the range of things that getting a bachelor's degree with a license would allow you to do,
Okay.
and especially, not what getting a master's would allow you to do. But it is a credential and it is meaningful, and there are many opportunities currently for good jobs with
That's
an
awesome.
associate's degree.
All right. Hey, everybody listening. Remember what she just said. There's a lot of options out there right now. And also try to stay in school if you can. It's very helpful. I'm about to get my associate's degree. I spent 2 years trying to think about, was it worth it? Is it worth it? Should I get it? But you just kind of reinforced to me that you do have some more opportunities if you have even just an associate's degree.
Yes.
And as you continue to get more doors open up.
Yes.
And that's what professors, my parents, and everyone's been trying to tell me. And I'm just on here on the podcast to kind of give the perspective of a student because
Right.
that's what I am right now. So I'm just there to relate to all of you guys who are watching or listening. I feel the same way. So we're motivating you to get involved in behavioral health, but just in general, based off of the conversation we just had, try to stay in school, stay motivated to get through so you can graduate because you'll have an easier time trying to get into your career or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yes. And congratulations
Oh,
for
thank you.
graduating soon.
Thank you so much. It's been an interesting journey, but I've loved every single second, and I've actually learned a lot. I feel like there's a stigma with college, and people believe that it's just busy work or whatever the case may be. But there are some interesting things. If you get into a major that you really like, you'll learn some stuff. All right, because you're reading books a lot. At least for I'm in journalism and communication.
Yes.
I
So
read and write
important.
all the time.
Yep.
But it's a good thing. You know, I'm able to write scripts, I'm able to do different things. So in the work world, it makes things easier.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of the job of college as well, is to kind of prepare you for what things are really going to be like. Because once you get out there, you're like, oh, I already know how to do this.
Right.
I've been doing this. And that makes sense because you did all of your schooling and all that training and everything. So when you finally got to the work, you was ready. You had no
Yes.
problems, did you?
It does prepare you.
It prepares
Yeah,
you.
for sure. And the learning is ongoing forever.
That's understandable. We are always still learning. That makes sense.
Yes.
Um,
But I wanted to tell you, I do have a colleague who started out as a journalist and
oh,
now has their own private practice.
oh, really?
Yes. So
Dang.
there may be a different career path in your future.
That's true. Well, that's actually an interesting thing because you're the person to talk to about this really quick before we get to the other topics. For someone like me, I love to help people as well. But in my mind, I want it to be like a therapist or something. I believe that I can help people through their tough times in life. I don't know if that ties into behavioral health or mental health or whatever, but I've always wanted to just have my own office, kind of, I assume a therapist is the right thing that I'm talking about, and just kind of hear what people have to say because I believe my perspective on life is slightly different and I can give a different perspective. So I really, really do want to go into that field to help others and their mental health as well because I believe mental health is super important.
Yes.
So somebody like me who's, starting in journalism and stuff like that, would I need to go kind of further my career in like Wright State, for example, or can I just kind of find a job in the field and work my way up, would you say?
So, in terms of licensure, so I'm a clinical social worker, but my practice, I work as a therapist.
Oh, okay.
So that's a very versatile path. And obviously, I have a bias,
Yeah.
as a social work professor at Sinclair.
Hmm.
And there are other paths. Even UD has a professional counseling
I
program.
didn't know that.
And yes, Wright State has both a bachelor's and master's of social work program. Central State has a bachelor's of social work program.
Okay.
Um, I believe, there's lots of opportunity. UC has a wonderful social work bachelor's and master's program. Ohio State, the Ohio State
Oh, yeah.
University,
Ohio State.
OU. We have just a wealth of opportunity for going into the clinical social work
Okay.
field.
Yeah.
In terms of working as a therapist, you can do that with a bachelor's degree. You would just need somebody with my credentials to be able to supervise your work on a daily basis. So
Okay.
we call that a clinical supervisor. So even if you were working in private practice, you would just be supervised by an independently licensed supervisor that would be able to consult with you on your cases and sign your notes.
Oh, so you're just there to like help basically and monitor to make sure that the person's doing the right thing? Pretty much?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I like the sound of that because I'd be nervous to be by myself at first. But that's definitely something I'm considering even now more so because you just kind of opened up my eyes to what it takes to get there. Because it's always been something in the back of my mind, as people have told me before, that just the sound of my voice is therapy to them. And I was like, okay, well, that's super sweet. Maybe I can help more people. And as
Yeah.
I've gotten older, they told me that I really should try at least to get into that type of work because I just help friends and family right now. It's a
Hmm.
personal thing, but you can tell how much I impact them. And so if I could do that on a wider scale, I feel like I could probably reach and help a lot of people. And that really is my goal as well. Like behavioral health, I assume since it's a part of all this, now that I know, it's one of my passions as well. And I actually had no idea how to go about it until right now. You telling me.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm super excited now moving forward. Like I said, I'm learning just like everybody else listening right now. And I just so happen to be someone who wants to go into that field. So I'm going to keep all of this in mind. And hopefully one day me and you can do some work together.
That
You
sounds
never
great.
know.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say when I was thinking about this podcast is that oftentimes the path chooses you.
Right.
And
That's
that
true.
sounds like what's true for you.
Yes. It's just the way things went for me, how I grew up and the things that happened. as I've become an adult, I feel like that's one of my callings
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And obviously, I've done social media work, YouTube stuff, and all of that. So I've had not face to face interactions, but like comments, DMs of people saying, "Hey, this helped me through my day. Hey, you made my day better." And that type of stuff warms my heart so much to hear. Like, I love hearing that. I want to
Yes.
help those people who just need a little pick me up. They
Mm-hmm.
need a little bit of inspiration, or, just somebody to be there for them when they don't have anyone. And that's kind of my perspective on the whole thing. I know that there's a lot more to it, but that's kind of like the general base that I like to have. And I obviously have a decent passion for this as I'm learning to get into it, but you yourself are very passionate about what you do in your work. So I want to know what led you to this field. You said the path chooses you. When did it choose you?
Yeah. So, similarly, I really resonate with you saying you were kind of the go to person for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I definitely resonate with that experience. And what led me to formally take this decision um, is that as I was working as a server, one of my coworkers said, my mom and my grandma do this program with children who've been traumatized, and they're looking for artistic support.
Okay.
And so, knowing that I grew up a dancer, I even had a couple professional companies
Okay.
in my early 20s.
Nice.
And also, I love to play music. And so, this coworker knew that about me and said, you might be interested in adding a little bit to these groups with,
Yeah.
the creative interventions. And so, of course, I jumped on it because,
For sure.
that sounded lovely. And being able to engage with the young people that were in this program and see the beauty that they created out of their pain. I mean, just the
Yeah.
wisdom, people creating song lyrics saying, "You really hurt me, but all I hope for you is healing."
Mm.
As an 8-year old,
That's deep. Yeah.
it was very transformative for me. So I have a lot of gratitude just for that experience. And when I saw that that was possible to do that as a job,
Yeah.
I was like, sign me up.
Jumped on it.
What hoops do I need to jump through? I will do it.
That's amazing. I love that story. And that's how it all starts. Everyone who's listening, you're doing your own thing. And like you said, it finds you. I believe everything happens for a reason. It's not a coincidence that something like that happened. That was a part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And you dealt with it fantastically. You saw it and just got on it immediately. No procrastination or thinking or anything. Because you felt it probably in your heart that that's what you needed to do.
Right.
And I love that. It's so pure. Stories like that are pure. And that's basically how a lot of people's stories start off when they go so deep into a profession.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the little things.
Right.
And that's an amazing, amazing outcome. You have capitalized on it like crazy. From that one experience, that one conversation you had with that person turned into a lifetime of inspiration for others. And I love to hear that. Those types of stories just make me happy. Now the rest of my day is going to be great. So we know how you got into the field, but why do you stick with it? It's been so many years. What's keeping you in it?
Yeah. So the 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 impact, like you said, getting to celebrate with clients
Mm.
when we've worked so hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
We've done all sorts of interventions together for then you to be able to say, I no longer have suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody to say that, I'm floored.
You saved a life.
And, I don't take full credit for it. It's a celebration together. It's a collaboration all the way,
Right.
because there's no way that I could do anything for someone
Right.
that they're not willing to do themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we as therapists can be here to offer tools and to create a safe space for people to unpack what is getting in their way.
Yes.
And to have that be effective and impactful and have it be reflected back to say, it's been months since I've had a panic attack.
Mm.
All of those celebrations just
Yeah.
are so relieving, that like this one life then is able to go on and inspire others in their special and unique way
Yeah.
without the barriers of these other things just disrupting their ability to function.
Yeah, yeah. The energy that you give out and radiate is so infectious. And that's how it spreads because you impact those people, they impact those people. We talked about it earlier. And you being able to make that happen with the skills that you have, I mean, it's a blessing. The world needs more people like you, which is why we're trying to inspire them. But in any type of social work, any type of experience where you're dealing with others, even in customer service or something general like that,
Mm-hmm.
all of us at some point reach, a kind of burnout
Yeah.
because we're all human. Do you experience burnout in your social work?
Yeah, and that is something that's not an if, it's a when,
Yeah.
really, in the field of social work. And so, what we can do to mitigate against that and to build up our resilience to it
Hmm.
is to make sure that we have the support that we need. So, I have a therapist,
Okay.
love her.
Nice.
Yeah. And she really helps me ground and helps me come down, and find the meaning in what I'm doing again when I'm starting to get lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also, have a great supportive group of friends that we even were more solidified during lockdown,
Yeah.
and have just carried on that support moving forward. Of course, my partner is super supportive and like literally makes me coffee every morning,
Oh, that's so sweet.
so
That's
just
awesome.
having, people in my life that are really supportive, as well as, engaging in things like mindfulness and yoga. I love to be out in nature.
Mm.
Refilling my cup is just as important as, showing up on time every day,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
It's like I show up for my clients because they matter and their time is important. And I need to show up for myself because I matter and my time is also important.
Yes. That is
In
true.
the same way,
Hmm.
like there's no one over the other.
Right. Okay. So just that balance
Mm-hmm.
that you create. And that's an amazing way to deal with that. I think a lot of us can benefit from your methods of dealing with that burnout because it does happen. And it does depend on the person with how much it affects them. Because I've been working in customer service for like 4 years now. And that's kind of also how the me helping other people kind of developed because I had to talk to so many new people every single day for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
And you would hear so many different stories, people coming from all walks of life, and you never know what they're going through. Even if somebody's having a bad day, you don't want to make it worse by
Mm-hmm.
treating them as badly. So being able to deal with that is a skill. And I assume that you've learned the coping mechanisms over time, right? What works for you and everything. So that's amazing. And hopefully some people can kind of pick up on that and maybe incorporate that into their detox when you're trying to recover from extreme social situations because everyone needs that time to kind of come back.
Yes.
It's very, very important because if you let yourself go, then it creates a chain. Everybody's going to be all over the place. I like to think of people like you as some sort of lifeline for certain people. You know, they rely on you, and that means that you have to keep yourself
Yes.
mentally well
Mm-hmm.
in order to help those other people too, because it's a big responsibility.
Yes. And when our code of ethics for the profession of social work was updated in 2021,
Hmm.
self-care became incorporated into our mandate.
Oh, okay.
So it's even part of our code of ethics that we
Yeah.
are mandated to take care of ourselves.
Mm. That's how it needs to be
Yes.
because your mental health is just as important. And with you having so many social situations, like it's hard sometimes because everyone's different. You run into so many unique personalities, and through studying communication, which is what I'm doing right now, there's a way to communicate with each different type of person, and you kind of have to understand that by getting to know them, understanding what they believe in, their mannerisms and whatnot. And through doing that, it's a lot of, mental, you're thinking all the time
Mm-hmm.
and all that. So I'm not anywhere near your level at all. But as far as communication and speaking with a lot of different people, I do have a little bit of experience with that because I've had to talk to a lot of people. I've had to work with a lot of different people constantly over and over. And it can be a lot sometimes mentally, but
Right.
it's nothing we can't handle.
Yeah, it's just the balance. Yeah, and you have to know what your limit is
Exactly.
and respect that. Just like you respect other people's boundaries,
Hmm.
we have to respect our own and we have to know what they are.
That's true. Yeah. So I feel as though I've learned so much from you
Yay.
with this podcast that we've done. But I wanted to ask, is there anything in general that that the advice that you want to give to the audience, the people listening, is there anything you want to say to them that they can kind of take and benefit from? Whereas if it's their career or just their future in general, is there anything you want to say to them?
Yeah. So, like I said before, noticing the strengths that you have, including the wealth of experience that you have that you're bringing into this field, and recognizing that as a strength is so important. And also to trust your own intuition and your own heart to guide you toward what's right for you,
Yeah.
because we can go out into the field and we can get a job,
Hmm.
but are we valued as a whole person in that role?
Yeah.
Are we encouraged to be creative? Are we encouraged to bring all of our strengths? And are we celebrated for all that we are?
Right.
And you have options. So if that's not true of where you are, then find that thing that is, find that place that is, or create it. Because we have that opportunity now.
Yes, that is so inspiring. Oh my gosh. Well, if anyone has been impacted by you today and they really want to get a hold of you, how does somebody get in touch with you or your organization?
So, I have a public facing profile on psychologytoday.com, and then generally also just word of mouth
Okay.
for, getting in touch with my private practice. But also, here at Sinclair, I'm teaching full time. So,
Oh, yeah. They can come
5
find you.
different classes.
Oh, really? 5 different ones?
Well, 5 different sections of 3 different classes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Very busy. Very busy. That's good though. So pretty much anybody can find you on Psychology Today, and then if they want to find a way to get in touch with you, they can find it on the internet or through Sinclair or something like that.
Yes. So all the information is on
Oh,
psychologytoday.com.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. All righty. Well, I really just want to thank you and everyone for tuning in and listening to what you had to offer, Ree. I'm inspired myself, so I'm sure everybody else probably is too. You've definitely impacted me with this conversation we've had, but hopefully everyone has learned something. Hopefully you can take something away from this podcast today that you can use to better your life or your career. If you want to learn more information about behavioral health or anything along those lines, go ahead and visit our website at behavioralhealthcareer.com. And you can go through there, and we have different options for you. We also have some events coming up that I wanted to mention really quickly. There's a substance use disorder seminar happening on October 29th from 12:30 to 2 p.m. at Sinclair College in Building 12, Room 361, if you want to attend that. And then there is a fall behavioral health career fair at the Sinclair Course View campus in Mason on November 1st from 1 to 5 p.m. So if you guys want to kind of get into some more behavioral health, meet some more like-minded folks who are thinking about doing this as well, I highly recommend checking those things out, along with checking out our website. But today, Ree, I appreciate you so much for joining me. You're awesome. You're awesome.
Likewise.
And I really am excited to see more of the work that you do moving forward. I know you have some great things planned, and you'll continue to inspire people and make an impact on their lives. And I think that that's something that's really important. You're doing great work. You're doing great work, and hopefully we can get many more people in the same position as you so that we can help as many people as we can
Yes.
with their mental and behavioral health. So with that being said, we have come to the end. Thank you again for joining us, Ree. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next time on the Social Work Speaks podcast.
Thank you.